with everyone, everywhere, every day, forever, which I always found terribly intimidating. But I think if you look at the genesis of Competes and Rise Above the Gathering Storm, I think it is a shot across our bow in terms of what it takes to increase our global competitiveness and prepare tomorrow's workforce. And it was done initially in a bipartisan way, and I think that's the hope here as well. Several of us on this committee, as part of the New Democratic Coalition, have worked on developing a set of principles to guide the reauthorization of Competes legislation. And in reviewing this draft, there's some overlap, including in the legislation that was just discussed about dealing with the Valley of Death and improving proof of concept ideas or seed money for projects that can lead to commercialization. At the same time, I think as drafted, this neglects some, I think, very core issues around the lack of funding for basic research and the lack of an innovation title. And I want to ask initially, at least, about the lack of an innovation title. As drafted, the first act doesn't include any directed authorizations for programs such as the Regional Innovation Program, the reauthorization of a program authorized in the 2010 Competes legislation to help spur the development of regional innovation clusters, or in general, any pilot that continue to examine ways to push innovation on a regional level. I'd like to address the first question to all of the witnesses. Do you feel it's important to include an innovation title in the first act, and specifically if you can speak to the ideas around regional innovation clusters?
Somebody.
I'm happy to go first. I spoke last. I think regional innovation is very much a sweet spot. Communities have built up with past capacities, say, for example, in manufacture, that now need to reach beyond the past into the new economy. And the new economy is different from the old one. It's a knowledge economy. So, and I think these regional clusters where you have the combination of intellectual capacity and human capacity, students coming forward with competencies. That's why the connection to higher education is so important. You have the flow of talent, you have the intellectual setting of the interdisciplinary kind of collaboration that's needed, and you put that in a regional setting where there may be specific things. So in New York, the Regional Economic Development Councils have been very successful in forging that. So I would personally strongly support an innovation title.
Let me reinforce that and add a little something to it. Dr. Killeen has mentioned a couple times the notion of an innovation ecosystem, and I think those who have been doing research on innovation systems have come increasingly to appreciate the importance of regional connections. And if you go back and look at the origins of Silicon Valley and the Route 128 corridor around Boston, what you see is the role of DoD in catalyzing all the different elements of the ecosystems. So they were aggressively funding basic research at universities in the context of the defense and military mission, but also in the context of trying to increase the flow of experts that they could then hire into the defense system. But they were also providing funding for startup firms. They were negotiating intellectual property agreements, helping negotiate intellectual property agreements between faculty and small startup firms. And from this ecosystem approach that DoD took in the late 1940s and early 1950s, grew, of course, these innovation powerhouses around Boston and Palo Alto. So I think it's really important to take both a regional approach and an ecosystem approach in trying to understand how to intervene in these systems.
Well, the only thing I can really add to that is, and it goes back to the previous testimony in July on the Transfer Act, the recommendations that are in Section 421 here, I think will have an impact. At Purdue, we have evidence that we've done very similar things with an endowment, and we can show for Federal support that when you provide some proof of concept or development funding, we can show a 40% increase in licensing rate over a 35-year history when you invest this way. So we're very supportive of the Transfer Act and what it can do in general.
Thank you.
I just note that our time has expired, but I don't think I have anything to add. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.